Welcome to my series where I'm going to be ranking every single Doctor Who monster and villain from the 1960s up until the present day. But today we're just going to be talking about the 1960s. You know, the William Hartnell and Patrick Troughton era, from the Daleks to the Time Lords. So throughout the series, I'm mainly focusing on aliens and monsters, not so much individual villains, like if they're just some guy, I'm not really going to be talking about him at length. So I really want to talk about design and performance and basically the legacy of those characters within the show itself. So if I've left out your favorite villain who's just some guy, I'm very sorry. Let me know in the comment section below and maybe I'll do a whole dedicated video just to that person, who knows? Anything could happen. All right, let's not waste any time. Let's start with the Daleks. Instantly, the Daleks are in the best category. That's not even up for debate. Like, they are one of the most iconic designs from Doctor Who's history. Their legacy has stretched from all the way from the very beginning. The second ever story they appeared, and they're still appearing to this day. Well, except for Shidigawa, he doesn't get any Daleks. That's so upsetting. It's one of those magic moments in television and film where all departments come together to create magic. I don't remember who said this, but someone was saying, like, you know, television and film is a miracle. Like, you know, you have to rely on every single department working together and being at their best to create something special. And I think the Dalek is one of those creations. I don't think it's just Terry Nation. I think it's also Ray Cusick, the designer. I also think it's the vocal performance. It's everything working together to make them shine. Next up, we have the Voord, and I'm putting them in the good category. I think there's something really menacing about the shape of their heads, and I think they look really angular and very 60s, and having like the rubber suit and stuff like that, it's really great. And I think this starts to like establish a precedence for having a really great detailed mask and then just like a very generic latex suit. That becomes like a recurring theme throughout Doctor Who from here on. And, you know, I don't think that's the worst thing in the world anyway. You know, you're talking about 1960s television. These are very small television screens and most of it's done in close up anyway. So it's not the end of the world. I think it looks fine. Next up is the Sensorites. I've put them in the good category. I've put them here because I think their design is really incredible, but the execution of it is not necessarily the best. The mask looks really good, but it's just not attached to their face enough. So you can tell like the lips are just like kind of hovering there and you can see the actor's like mouth moving behind it and it kind of ruins the illusion a bit. But the actual design of it is really great. And I love their big oval feet. It's really cool and they just kind of move in an interesting way. And that shot of like the Sensorite outside the window is so iconic and creepy. And you can see why, you know, Rossa Davies was inspired by them for the Ood. And even the shot of, you know, the Sensorite coming behind the windows mirrored in the Dalek two-parter for Christopher Eccleston's finale. You know, like it does have a place in Doctor Who's history, but it's just needed a bit more of a polish to get it a bit higher, I think. Next up is Koquillion, and I've put him in great. This is one of my favorite Doctor Who designs. I think it's incredible. This is another great example of a very detailed mask and the rest of the costume is just like a robe. But I do love this design. I think it looks really creepy and cool. And I don't want to spoil it for people who have seen it, so I'm not going to. But the reveal of who Koquillion is and a really good way of like subverting expectations and stuff like that. I don't know. I don't want to spoil it, so I'm not going to go into it. Either way, I love Koquillion. I think it's a great design. Next up is the Menoptra. I've put them in the okay category. I think it's a well-executed design, but it just feels a bit play school for me. And I think because it's not played for menace or anything like that as well, they are supposed to be like friendly-ish. They just don't really, yeah, I'm just not really sold. They just come across as very silly and they have very silly voices. And I find the Web Planet very difficult to watch. And I'm just not a massive fan of them. Out of all the alien designs in this story, they're probably my least favorite. Next up is the Zarbi, and I've put them in the good category. I love this design. I think it's brilliant. I like how it's just like an actor like hunched over and he has these big massive legs and then tiny little arms. And I love the little beeping. I think they're just really unique and alien and silly. And I think they're better executed than the Menoptra. And maybe that's because they don't speak and they just beep. Even though the beep is really annoying and it's really irritating as it keeps going on, I still think it is preferable to the Menoptra. I don't know. Am I wrong? Let me know in the comments. I don't know. Next up are the Aridians, and I put them in the okay category. I think this is a fine executed design. I think, there's a real effort to make the entire outfit cohesive and have design elements throughout it. And I think like painting them silver gives them that nice little shine to them. And, I think it's a fine executed design. It's just not something that overly excites me. It's very much like just a fish person, and it's okay. It's just really okay. It's not bad in any way, shape, or form. I think they've done a good job, but yeah, it's okay. Next up, we have the Mechonoids, and I put them straight into the great category. I love the Mechonoids. I think they are such a great design. They are so cool. The only thing I haven't put them into the best category is because I just think as a prop, they're very cumbersome. They can't really fit them on these sets. It makes it really difficult to make them do much either because they are so big. Their arms are very useless and they kind of just like fumble around a bit. And although I think their voices are very iconic and very cool and how they talk is really interesting, it is also quite limited as well. But their actual design, I really, really love. It's so 60s, like painfully 60s. And their size is so impressive and intimidating. And when they're fighting against the Daleks, you feel like they actually have a real chance. And that scene is just so awesome and sick. I just really, really enjoy the chase and I enjoy the Mechonoids a lot. I would love to see them return, but I think it comes down to that. It's just how impractical they are as props. And I think that's why they never came back. Next up is the Meddling Monk, and I've put him into the great category. I adore the Meddling Monk. I think he is such a great adversary for the first Doctor. Having the Doctor be this really like tough and gruff and the Monk being this silly, goofy guy, like it makes a really great chemistry on screen. And it becomes the first of many Time Lord adversaries for the Doctor. And I just think he is excellent. Peter Butterworth is an incredible actor. And I really wish the Monk would come back. But, I think we've had enough Time Lord returns lately. Let's just say that. So I can wait. No rush. Take your time. Next up are the Dravens, and I put them in the okay category. I think it's a really effective design. It's really simple, classic, just a few little dots in the face, an iconic little wig, and just a really like 60s mod outfit. And they look great. Yeah, no notes. Love it. Next up are the Chumblies, and I put them in the good category. I really enjoy the Chumblies. I think they are a really interesting design. I like how small and compact they are and how they move their layers and stuff like that. They feel like a real like droid. It feels like a very early R2-D2 type of vibe. They're really cute and sweet. And, that's really difficult to really pull off for something that's just like a random pile of metal, but they managed to really do it. And their little like sound effects are really cute. And yeah, I just think it's a really well executed design. Next up, we have the Reels, and I put them in the okay category. I think if all of the episodes were back in the archive, I'd have a better idea of what I'd really think of them. Because judging by the few photos that we have, I think they look really intimidating and great. But without seeing them move, you can't really give a proper analysis of where they rank. So I think if the episode survived, I'd probably put them up a bit higher, depending on how it moved. I feel like it would have just been one great unmoving lump. So I don't really know. Next up is Centrial from the Daleks Master Plan. He's the only alien creature I put in this one just because I love talking about him. He's like a big Christmas tree and I just adore him. So he gets a place on the list. Yes, I probably should have included all of them, but I just think this is such a great, unique design, whereas the other ones feel a bit generic and I wouldn't have rated them very high. They would just be in the okay category. But there's something about this guy that really intrigues me. It's something that should feel kind of like theater, it looks like a bunch of felt with some like silly little eyes attached to it, but it exudes this like presence. And I think it's just because of the height of it. It's so tall and menacing and just mysterious. And I would love to see Centrial appear in something else, like a new interpretation of him, but still like harking back to that original design. I think there's something powerful there. I don't know, something to think about. Next up is the Monoids, and I put them in the good category. I think this is such a fun design. I think it's like a masterstroke of genius, the idea of putting the eye in the mouth and just like moving it that way. That is so great. And the little Beatles wig is so funny. Well, I shouldn't say little, it's huge. Like it's massive Beatles hair. I really wonder how like this design would be tackled nowadays. Like how would they make it with a higher budget? If it would look so much better or not, I don't know. But I think just the simple little ingenious ideas of like the eye and the mouth, that's just like the masterstroke of like 60s Doctor Who, you know, they're really trying to innovate and try something different. And I think this is a really good execution of that. Next up is the Celestial Toymaker, and I've put him in the okay category. I like at this point in Doctor Who that they're trying to experiment to tell different types of alien creatures. You know, during this time period, there was, you know, they went to the past, they went to the future, and then they sidestepped. And this is a great example of the sidestepping, you know, we're moving to another dimension where there's Toymaker realms with this unknowable power. And I think the idea behind that is probably better than the actual execution of it. I think Michael Gough's performance is really, really great. And he has a real sense of power. And it's just from the voice, it's just from his physical performance. You know, we only have that 4th episode surviving, but you can tell how great he is in it. Because he is such a great performer, he's making William Hartnell try even harder as well. Like you can say that they're really trying to outdo each other, and it's so great. But ultimately, I'm not a massive fan of his costume because it's just recycled from Marco Polo. I don't think it's like something that's really exceptional. And so that's why I put him in the okay category, even though I think his performance is good. Next up is the War Machines, and I've put them in the okay category. I think it's a solid design, and I think it works. It doesn't feel very exciting for me. I think it's just kind of like a cumbersome tank. But I think it does the job, but it doesn't feel as powerful as it possibly should. They just didn't really have the budget to really pull this off. And at the end of the day, it feels like it's just a big cube with a bunch of wheels on it. You know, it's just not the most exciting thing for me. But I do love this story, and I think it's fine. It's totally okay. It's okay. Next up is the Cybermen. The Cybermen I put straight into the best category. I should have mentioned, you know, when I'm talking about Daleks and Cybermen, I'm talking about the entirety of those designs throughout the entirety of the show. You know, because the Cybermen debuted in the 60s, I'm going to be talking about them exclusively here. I'm not going to talk about them every time they pop up. The Cybermen are one of my favorite Doctor Who villains. I think the concept behind, you know, these people who are trying to convert us and upgrade us to become like them is creepy, and it taps into that body horror and that fear of like surgery and going to hospital and stuff like that. It really like pushes into all of those elements and needles and stuff like that, and it really puts you on edge. And the core base of like being fearful of technology is something that will always be relevant from 1966 to the current day. You know, we're talking about AI and what does that mean for society and stuff like that. You know, we're still talking about technological advances. How far should we go? When have we gone too far? And I think the Cybermen are perfect for that. And that's why they will always be timeless. But the thing about the Cybermen is like, in some of their appearances, they tap into that stuff more, into their origins and what they represent. And then sometimes they become a generic robot army. And I think when they become a bit more generic and more robotic, and there's less talk about converting and the body horror, they're not as interesting for me. They just become a bit more generic, and you could replace them with any other alien. And I think that's when they don't shine as much. But I still think the Cybermen deserve their place as like the second most popular Doctor Who monster of all time, the second most well-known. Even though I think probably nowadays people would probably know the Daleks and Weeping Angels. What do you think? I'm not really sure. I think it depends on the age of the person you're asking. But I feel like if I asked one of my friends who aren't a Doctor Who fan, they know the Weeping Angels and they know the Daleks, but I don't think they know the Cybermen. Next up is the Fish People from the Underwater Menace. This design is unfortunately not for me. I don't find it creepy enough or interesting enough. It kind of just feels like dancer outfits, which is what it was. You know, that's exactly what it was. It was just like a leotard with like sparkly things put on it. It doesn't really feel like a Doctor Who monster. It feels really, really cheap. I can see what they're going for, but I just don't think they had the budget to really pull it off. Next up is the Macra, and I put them in the okay category. Now, if you're a long-time viewer of this channel, you know I'm a massive fan of the Macra Terror. It's one of my favorite Doctor Who stories of all time. I think the Macra are such an incredible menace, but the reason why they work for me, because the story is missing. You know, in the audio, they sound really like powerful and strong and cool and creepy. And in the animation, they look really great because, you know, they've upped the budget. But in the original production, like that crab looks silly. It looks so bad. And I know if those episodes came back, their menace would like disappear instantly, you know. But I think the reason why the Macra works so well in audio as well is that you don't really see the crab that often. You see, you know, the controller, and he's the one with the great voice and stuff like that. And then when the Macra come along near the end, they sound all goofy and they're all like talking with high-pitched voices and, no, you cannot come in here, like that type of stuff. It's just so goofy. So yeah, unfortunately, I've put them pretty low, even though I do love the Macra Terror. Next up is the Chameleons from the Faceless Ones, and I put them in the okay category. It's interesting talking about them just after the Macra Terror because I think the original design from the original production is better than the animated interpretation of it. So they kind of flipped. You know, the Macra look better in animation, Chameleons look better on live action. I think having this simple design that kind of looks like melted flesh is just totally workable. It totally works. It's one of those problems where because the episodes don't exist, you can't really give a great, accurate opinion on it. In those short little moments we do have that survives, they do look really creepy, but that's because they're shot on film and it's all from behind and stuff like that. We don't really get a really good look. And that's why it feels effective. But I think if we just saw them more face on, maybe not so much. I don't know. So they sit in the okay category, even though I think maybe they should be higher. Next up is the Dalek Emperor, and I put them in the great category. I think this is such an incredible interpretation of the Dalek design. You know, just make it huge, get rid of its little plungers, and just have it like lumbering with this great big booming voice and wires hanging out of it. It's such a great design. And it has a real sense of menace to it. And even just from the set images alone, you're like, wow, this looks incredible. And we've got a few handful of clips of it when it's moving and lighting up and stuff like that. And you just know it would have looked excellent. So yeah, I really enjoy this one. Great design. Next up is the Cybermats, and I put them in the good category, and that is insane. Like it's a little mouse, and I'm like, oh, it's so good. That's a good design. I put like the reels in the okay category. That's so goofy. I think the Cybermats do a great job at balancing looking really cute, but also really menacing at the same time. You know, when they're jumping and attacking people, you know, that's really creepy, but they look so sweet and innocent. They're going to be your little friend and stuff like that. And I like that type of menace. They're just a really cute design. You know, they really perfected the design of the Cybermat with closing time. I think they look really great in that. It's that perfect blend of the original design, just polished a little bit and given those teeth, those chompers. Yeah, I really like the Cybermats. Next up are the Yeti, and I put them in the great category. I love the Yeti. I think they are the perfect blends of cute and cuddly, but also strong and scary. You know, similar to the Cybermat, but I think these are just better. I just think they're a great design. I was really upset that they didn't return with the Great Intelligence in the new series. I think that was such a big mistake. I think it would have been really sick to see the Yeti come back, but maybe it's one of those things where they thought, we can't really pull this off to something that's going to be good enough for HD. And I get that. I get it. But I want to see my Yeti. Where they at? I think their redesign for the Web of Fear is better than their original version, but I do love both designs. Next up, we have the Ice Warriors, and I put them straight into the best category. I adore the Ice Warriors. I think they are, once again, the perfect blend of all the elements coming together. It's a great design. Their characterization is really good. I think their voices are incredible. And the way they move, you know, they're more like reptilian like movements, really sells the character. There's something special about the Ice Warriors, and I feel like they haven't really been given a great episode. They never really seem to be in like the best of the best when it comes to their stories. Like I like the Seeds of Death, but I don't love it. You know, I don't mind Empress of Mars, but I don't love it. But I love their characters. They have a real menace to them. And the way they move, they feel so intimidating and tough. I just don't know what it would take to give them an incredible story. Because I think that Cold War, in theory, should have been excellent. I think once they took off the mask, they really ruined it because it's such a brilliant design. Like, if you're going to take the mask off, you need to see something incredible underneath. And I think just like some CGI face just doesn't cut it. It doesn't cut it. Yeah, I wasn't impressed by that. So yeah, something to think about. Next up is Salamander, and I put him in the good category. I think Patrick Troughton does a really good job at playing dual roles and stuff like that. He comes across as really menacing. So I think it's a fine performance. Yeah, I haven't really got much to say. I think he just does a good job as a villain. Sorry, that's not really interesting. Next up is the Seaweed monster from Fury from the Deep, and I put it in the okay category. This is another problem where the episodes don't survive, so you don't know. Judging by the audio, they sound terrifying. They sound really creepy. And we see, just this little glimpse of them moving in the foam from some recorded footage on set. And they look cool. They look creepy, but you don't really know unless those episodes came back. You really don't. So I put them in the okay category, but they could potentially go up if those episodes ever came back. God, I wish. Could you imagine? Fury from the Deep? That's one of the ones I'd love to see back. Because that audio is incredible. But then again, it could come back and it's just not as good as the sound. It's hard to tell. But what we do have of it is incredible. So who knows? I think it'd be a lost classic. I think if it came back, it would go hard. Next up are the Dominators, and I put them in the not for me category. Just giving them big shoulder pads just isn't enough for me, babe. It's not enough for me. Try again. I don't think they have any menace. I don't like them at all. Next up we have the Quarks, and I put them in the okay category. I think they're really cute, and that's all I have to say about it. Yeah, next we have the White Robots, and they're in the okay category. This is a recycled costume from another show, and they were smart to get something that looks good. And that's all I really need to say about it. I'm not obsessed with this one. I think it just looks okay. Next up, we have the Krotons, and I've put them in the not for me category. As you're starting to see, I'm not a huge fan of the beginning of season 6. It doesn't really excite me as much when it comes to monster design. I think they really peaked in Patrick Troughton's first 2 seasons, and then by the final season, it doesn't have that je ne sais quoi, like it's missing something. I don't know. But these, I think in theory, like there's an idea behind it. I just don't love the execution. I like the dome heads, like the crystal looking head and stuff like that, but the rest of the body is just a bit odd. It doesn't feel right. Next up, we have the War Chief, and I put him in the good category. This is a really good time to have the Doctor to have a Time Lord adversary. In the War Games in Color, they try to recon him into being the Master as well, which I guess it half works, but I don't really know why you have to do that. It's fine. I'm not mad by it. But I think the character on his own works. But you can see why he is kind of the blueprint for the Master as well, in the same way that the Monk is also a blueprint of the Master. It's like they took those 2 Time Lord characters and meshed them together and created the Master. And I think he's good. And last but not least, I'm putting the Time Lords into the great category. I think this is really an important moment in Doctor Who's history, where the Time Lords are established as a villain for the Doctor. It's not just like the individual villain, it's the entirety of the Time Lord race. The Doctor is so different to the rest of Gallifrey. He isn't a Time Lord in many ways. He's more of an outcast. So, having the entirety of Gallifrey against him makes it really interesting. And I like that kind of thread goes throughout the 3rd Doctor's era, where the Time Lords have taken away his ability to time travel and stuff like that. And, he's been sent out into missions and stuff like that. And, throughout the entire classic era, the Time Lords are a menace and they get in the Doctor's way a lot of the time. And, when the new series comes around and the Time Lords are all of a sudden all these people that he misses and stuff like that, he romanticizes what they were, and when they come back he's like, no, this is a bad thing. And that's what makes Rusty Davies a great writer at times, is because he understands that there's levels to a situation like that. When you do miss someone, but it's probably good that they're not in your life anymore. Stuff like that is what makes the Time Lords shine. They're not just a generic villain, they're complicated. So I really do like the Time Lords throughout the entirety of Doctor Who. And I think they're a great villain to end off the 60s, because it really changes the show after this story. So there we have it. That's all the 1960s monsters and villains that I wanted to talk about ranked. What do you think of my list? Do you agree with it? I think having the Daleks, Cybermen, and Ice Warriors at the top, best of the best, works for me. I think that's a fair place. I think I should have had probably more in the best. But I think once you're putting Daleks and Cybermen, you need to be like, are they as good as them? And that's tough. It's a tough thing to do. So I'm happy with where this is. I'm really happy with the great category. I do love all of those little guys. I think they're great. I'm surprised there's so many in the just okay section because, you know, a lot of those stories I really do enjoy, but I just think the actual monster design, there's something missing to really elevate it to a higher level. But I really think that the 60s was a really great time for monsters in Doctor Who. And I'm looking forward about talking about future eras and their interpretation of Doctor Who monsters. But yeah, let me know who I missed out as well. Is there someone I really missed out who's so obvious that I should have put here? Thank you for sitting through this stupidly long video, and I hope you have a nice day. Bye. Okay. Don't forget to click below to subscribe to the official Josh Nair's YouTube channel.